That. Yeah, the beach. I want to go there.
Okay, you can go to the beach. Now, do we have a deal?
Yeah.
Standing alone on a beach, a man named Jericho Stewart soliloquizes,
They messed with my brain. Thought they knew what they'd get. But they were wrong. They don't know me. I don't know what happens next, but this I do know. You hurt me. I hurt you worse.
To understand how we got to this point, we have to go back to how everything started. In London, CIA agent Bill Pope enters a shop to get a brown leather duffel bag his wife, Jill, ordered. The attendant tells him they got it in black and brings it out. When Bill sees the cash inside, he's satisfied and leaves through the back. He makes a call to Jill, but Emma, his daughter, picks up instead. She puts Jill on, who then asks when Bill is coming home. However, his sweet chat gets interrupted, and he becomes highly cautious when he notices a car pulling up ahead. He tells Jill he'll call her later, quickly takes out his SIM card, and slips the phone into an unsuspecting man's pocket. He enters the subway, but another man follows him inside. Thankfully, he escapes just as the train moves. He then steals a bike and zooms off. At the CIA, Quaker Wells, head of operations, and other agents, Marta, Ruiza, and Greensleeves monitor Bill's movement. They lose him for over 20 minutes, and when they finally find him at a station, they don't see the duffel with him. Meanwhile, Elsa, the right-hand woman to Xavier Heimdall, founder of Stoneharp Industries and an anarchist pursuing Bill, spots him as he enters a cab. She tells Heimdall the plate number over the phone, and he pulls up the details. Realizing he's being followed by Elsa and her men, Bill borrows the cab driver's phone and texts Marta about it. Hearing this, Quaker orders them to get Bill to the cement factory in Deptford. Bill puts the address in the driver's GPS, telling the man the location. However, Heimdall also sees the location and changes it on the GPS. Bill realizes, albeit too late, that they're not going to the cement factory. He quickly tells the driver to turn around, but the man gets shot in the head. More gunshots follow as Bill ducks in the back. He manages to step out and shoot one of the mercenaries. Firing like his life depends on it, he runs to hide at a corner, but soon realizes he's out of bullets, leaving him frustrated. Elsa soon arrives at the location. When Quaker learns Bill hasn't gotten to the factory, he says,
The GPS on that phone number. Find him now.
Unfortunately, it's too late, as Bill's been captured and taken to an abandoned building. Heimdall uses a cattle prod connected to a voltmeter to torture Bill. He asks about the Dutchman, but Bill doesn't give up any information. Heimdall then puts the prod directly under Bill's chin, while Elsa turns up the current. The agents soon arrive, but they only see Bill tied up and unconscious. They try to save him, but unfortunately, he's already gone, leaving Quaker devastated. In his office, Dr. Franks, who's been working on a memory program, gets a visit from a CIA agent sent to fetch him. He says,
We have an officer down and we need what only he knew. You're gonna retrieve it for us.
Franks asks if he has brain activity, and the agent shows him the test taken a few hours ago. Although Franks is 5 years away from human trials, the agent tells him he has 48 hours to make it work, since it's the highest level of national security threat. Franks has a recipient for the operation, though he's sure the CIA won't like him. At the U.S. Penitentiary in West Virginia, the warden tells the agents about Jericho, the intended recipient. He's been in and out of prison more than half his life. He has no impulse control or sense of proportion. He's unable to calculate the potential negative consequences of his actions. He has a total lack of empathy for anybody or anything, and he basically feels nothing, no hatred or love. It gets even worse, as he doesn't understand society or how people are supposed to behave. When they go to his cell, it takes several shots of tranquilizers for the guards to even go close, and they take him out while unconscious. He is taken to the Air Force Base, where he is strapped down. Franks asks how he got an injury on his head when he was young, and he just says,
My mother told my daddy that he wasn't my daddy, so he called her a whore and threw me out the car window.
Meanwhile, Heimdall sits for a live show where the host, Piers Morgan, interviews him. He's been charged with treason by the Spanish government, and Piers asks his take on it. Heimdall feels he's only calling out corrupt government systems. He wants a worldwide revolution of all governments. Jericho is brought to the RAF base, where the operation is set to begin. He was chosen because he has frontal lobe syndrome due to the incident when he was a child. Because of this, his frontal lobe remains undeveloped, a case which is incredibly rare. The transfer begins, and despite a complication where Jericho almost loses his life, Quaker orders Franks and his team to continue. Thankfully, Jericho manages to stabilize, and the operation is concluded successfully. Afterward, he regains consciousness. Quaker orders everyone out except Franks and begins questioning Jericho as if he were Bill. Jericho is disoriented since he just got out of surgery and begins to panic when he sees the wound on his head. However, Quaker keeps bombarding him with questions about Jan Stroop, the Dutchman, who's a hacker. He reveals
A few days ago, the Dutchman dug a wormhole in the deep web.
Franks tells him to stop with the questions for now, as Jericho struggles against his restraints. But Quaker doesn't care and continues.
Suddenly, the Dutchman's got his finger on a whole command and control. He can fire missiles anytime, anywhere. Eh?
Apparently, Jan called Bill for protection and offered to make a deal. Jericho continues groaning in pain, and Quaker finally relents. Taking a pain med from Franks, the stubborn man just holds it close to Jericho and continues telling him Bill's actions. They had orders to end the Dutchman, but Bill forced the play because he thought he could trust him. Bill took him to the safe house. Just then, Bill's memories flash in Jericho's mind as Quaker aggressively asks him where the Dutchman is. More memories flash, and it turns out Bill was going back with the money to close the deal with Jan. Jericho continues getting memories while Quaker yells at him to remember. However, Jericho just tells him he doesn't remember anything. He thinks Quaker has him confused with someone else. Frank suggests Quaker try with family, and he begins asking Jericho about Emma and Jill. The memories come to Jericho, but he still doesn't say a word. Quaker leaves in anger, telling Franks he wants a refund. In an apartment, Jan is restless, probably still waiting for word from Bill, but he soon makes a decision and leaves. Quaker returns to the CIA and asks an agent to pull up the video the Dutchman earlier sent. That's where Jan reveals,
I am now the sole administrator of Vigilant Shield, the emergency command and control system for the United States military. I can authorize and activate any weapon system in your arsenal, and I can override any standing order.
He wants to sell Wormhole back to them for asylum, a prominent passport, guaranteed protection, and $10 million. Greensleeves points out Heimdall and Safehouse locations, estimating that the Dutchman should be somewhere between the 2 points. The question, however, is, where exactly? Jan moves along the street and eventually sees a phone booth. He makes a call to the Pope residence asking for Bill. Jill breaks the sad news, leaving Jan in disbelief. Jericho is let out, but Frank sneakily places a pill in his mouth to help with the blood pressure in his head, before telling him to take care of himself. Jericho then enters the car and is driven away by 2 agents. Along the way, he secretly creates a makeshift hook and uses it to cut the carotid artery of the agent driving. The other quickly begins steering the wheel in panic, while Jericho holds the hook with his life. In a matter of seconds, they crash into another car. Jericho gets out and releases his hands from the cuff. When he hears the driver from the other car groaning, he quickly knocks him out, then drags him to take his place in the car. After tying up his hands, he sets the car ablaze to make it look like he never survived and walks away. He makes it into town, steals some food from a small shop without remorse, then mercilessly beats up some men outside to take their van. While driving, he gets plagued with Bill's memories, including the money bag, making the pain return. When he settles, he heads to the Pope residence. Inputting the code he recalls from his memory, he gains access inside. He sneaks up on a sleeping Jill and begins to tie her up with tape. Naturally, she wakes up and struggles, but Jericho suddenly sees Bill's memories with Jill. After securing her, he heads to Emma's room but is unable to harm the child, as he gets memories of her. He goes back to Jill and tries touching her because of the pleasurable memories he gets, but manages to stop. Focusing on the money instead, he asks Jill about it, but she says, I don't know. Just then, the phone rings and Jericho picks up. Noticing the silent alarm, Ruiza asks for the security code, and Jericho gives it from Bill's memories, saying Emma must have hit the button again before ending the call. He then inputs the code. Jill manages to free herself and rush to Emma's room, blocking the door with a shelf. However, it's just Jericho's hallucination. From the bed, Jill presses the silent alarm with her foot, which the CIA receives. Jericho begins packing some items while Jill breaks free and rushes to Emma. When the phone rings, Jericho is unable to hurt Jill or Emma. Instead, he just drives away. The next morning, Jan makes a video to the Russians, stating his plan to sell Vigilant Shield with the same demands he made to the CIA. He feels betrayed, believing they want to end his life. It turns out he was originally working with Heimdall, but changed his mind, making Heimdall furious and now after him. He wants to give control to a responsible party because he knows Heimdall is one crazy human. He gives them a deadline, where he will demonstrate the power the control holds. After watching the cow in the video, the Russians decide to wait until the deadline to see what he can do. Jill calls the police to report the break-in, and the agents are notified. They realize the description of the intruder matches Jericho, coupled with the fact he knew personal details. Quaker realizes he might not need a refund after all, and Martha reveals the test from forensics, confirming that the third body in the burnt car isn't Jericho's. Jericho takes the items he stole to a pawn shop, but when he gets a memory of brushing Emma's hair, he quickly snatches the brush from the broker's hand. Seems Bill's memories are beginning to work their magic. After pawning the rest, he goes to get coffee, cutting in front of a man. He makes his order in French but can't believe what he just spoke. Amazed, he yells out loud,
I'm speaking Spanish, motherfucker.
but the man corrects him, saying it's French, and repeats the swear word. As expected, this makes Jericho angry, and he punches the man in the nose. He then takes the coffee without paying and brazenly strolls out. On the streets, he gets more memories, this time the location of the duffel bag. He heads to the state library, aggressively cuts the line, and asks the attendant for the section containing George Orwell books. He then heads to the 4th floor, but he doesn't see the bag, as more memories enter his head in a scattered fashion. At the CIA, Ruiza realizes someone is logged into the system as Bill, and they instantly know it's Jericho. Greensleeves suggests
Block it. Shut it down. No, leave him in there. I want to see what he's looking for.
Though Jericho blocks them out, they're able to get the access point location. By the time Marta and some agents arrive at the library, Jericho is already gone. Checking the computer he used, they discover he accessed their phone tracking software and is on the way to meet Franks. Quaker makes a call to Franks, telling him Jericho is coming for him and instructs him to remain on the call. Truly, Jericho instantly corners Franks with his van and starts threatening him for the pills since he feels like his head wants to split whenever he gets Bill's memories. With the call still connected, Quaker and his agents listen in. Meanwhile, Heimdall gains access to Bill's account and sees the tracking system active, locating Franks. Franks takes Jericho to a pharmacy, where Bill's personality begins to clash with Jericho's behavior. The man is slowly becoming brand new as he explains everything that's been happening in his head. At this point, Heimdall is already watching them by hacking into the CCTV, and Frank says,
You're recalling Billy Pope's automatic responses to sensory stimulus. Cognitive, sense, touch, smell.
Jericho finally takes the pills, and Franks learns he's now feeling emotions. Just as he's about to leave, Franks tells him they need to run a test before the repatterning starts to fade. It can be roughly 48 hours, but Franks feels they can make it last longer. However, Jericho is only concerned with finding the money. He tries paying the pharmacist, but she tells him the pills are on the house. Jericho is seriously turning into a new creature. Just as he steps outside, he is ambushed by Ruiza, Martha, and some agents, and is taken away. Unbeknownst to them, Elsa follows. On a phone call, Franks tells Quaker that Jericho is influenced by Bill's memories and even his routines. Since the money is driving Jericho, Franks suggests they offer it, and he'll give them whatever they want. Greensleeves comes with a report, telling Quaker that the Dutchman is trying to make a deal with the Russians, leaving Quaker frustrated. Afterwards, he meets with Ruiza and Martha, ordering them to send Jericho back to prison. The Dutchman has been flagged at the city airport, and MI5 are covering him. However, when an agent tells Quaker that the facial recognition system has pulled up a red notice on the Dutchman, he orders his agents to pull over. In an interrogation room, Quaker offers Jericho a deal, but Jericho points at a picture of the beach, saying he wants to go there. Quaker agrees, and Jericho accepts the deal. However, within a blink, he hits Quaker in the chest and puts him in a chokehold with his cuffs. The agents rush in with their guns, but Quaker tells them not to shoot. Talking to Jericho, he says,
Only you can put out this fight.
The Dutchman. Where is he? And the money's yours.
Afterward, Jericho directs Quaker and the agents as he continues seeing Bill's memories. It's now 3 hours to the Dutchman's deadline. At another location, Quaker tells Jericho he can get the ransom money in the duffel bag if he takes them to the Dutchman. They get on the move while Heimdall tirelessly works from his system. Quaker and some agents arrive at the airport while Martha and other agents continue driving Jericho. Heimdall takes control of the bridge, then calls Elsa, instructing her to retrieve Jericho alive. Quaker and the others realize the man in the airport isn't Jan after all. Turns out Heimdall is responsible for the distraction. Elsa and her goons attack Martha and the others, just as the bridge begins opening. Jericho takes a gun from Martha, but Elsa shoots her down in that instant. After a tense gunfight, Jericho takes over a car and drives off the bridge. Thankfully, he manages to swim to shore despite his binds. Later, Greensleeves tells Quaker that a dive team has been sent to search for Jericho, and Quaker says,
Russians cannot be allowed to make the buy. Like at their embassy. Anything in, anything out gets covered.
To also block Heimdall, he asks for new passwords, firewalls, and a switch to military channels. It's 1 hour to the deadline, and Jericho finds his way to Bill's house. In the basement, he gains access to a box and treats his wounds. When Jill and Emma arrive, Emma goes to watch TV. Jill hears a faint sound and instantly springs into action. She takes a gun and cautiously heads to the basement. When she sees Jericho, she aims her gun, asking what he's doing there. Jericho isn't hostile this time, and he tells her,
They stuck Billy in my head. I got a scar, see? All the stuff that he knew, all the stuff that he could do, I got it all scrambled up inside me.
Normally, Jill doesn't believe this, but when Jericho begins telling her only things Bill knows, she can't help but believe. She wonders why they did it, and Jericho reveals the CIA is looking for where Bill kept someone. Jill still doesn't fully trust him, but when he says he can't hurt her because Billy could never hurt her, She eventually believes and leaves him in the basement. True to his deadline, Jan activates a missile on a submarine off the coast of Portugal. Despite several attempts from the military to shut it down, it doesn't work. Thankfully, Jan terminates the missile mid-air before any nuclear flash. Afterwards, he angrily destroys the room, devastated by his predicament. Meanwhile, Jericho helps Emma bury her toy in the yard as she fearlessly talks to him. When Jill sees this through the window, she immediately rushes outside, one hand behind her holding her gun. She asks him to leave, but Emma begs her to let him stay for dinner since she's taken a liking to him. Jill tells her to go in, and Jericho agrees to stay for dinner before he leaves. Afterward, Emma teaches Jericho to play the piano, and Jill watches from a distance. Who would have thought Jericho would turn out so calm? Jill tells Emma to go to bed, and the little girl gives Jericho a kiss before leaving. As Jericho turns to go, Jill asks him who he is. However, Jericho doesn't know. He says,
Most of my life a number. My brain don't always work right. Haven't always acted right. Having your man in my head made me feel things, know things, right, wrong.
Jill wonders if he can feel what Bill felt, telling him there was a funny thing he used to do. Before she can even finish, Jericho does the sign, bringing tears to Jill's eyes, since it was Bill's love signal. She reminisces about some loving memories as he sees them, and he tells her Bill loved her very much. He begins leaving, but when Jill learns he has nowhere specific to go, she offers him the couch. The next morning, news of the mystery missile airs. Jill brings Jericho a cup of coffee, and he begins getting memories when he sees the University of London emblem on the cup. He realizes the duffel bag is at the university's library where Jill works. It's in a locked bookcase, and he asks Jill for a car and the bookcase key. She gives it to him, and he tells her they'll have lots of money, leaving her surprised. Before leaving, he says,
I wish I could keep being him.
Afterward, Jill gets ambushed at the house by Elsa, who asks her about Jericho with a gun to her head. Despite his leg injury, Jericho makes it to the library and eventually locates the bag. Unfortunately, his victory is cut short when he sees Heimdall. He recognizes him, but Elsa knocks him down with an electric shock. At the CIA, an agent gets a notice of the Russians' arrival in Dagenham. Quaker knows the Russians aren't stupid enough to make a move from their embassy, realizing they've brought in a grab team to pick up the Dutchman. Quaker immediately gets on a chopper, and the plan is to follow the Russians, who would unknowingly lead them to the Dutchman. Heimdall and his goons take Jericho to meet Jill and Emma, who have been kidnapped by Elsa. He tries to save them, but the goons beat him up. Going straight to the point, Heimdall says, "Take me to the Dutchman," and Jericho instantly gets the memory of John's location. He's in Jill's office. Knowing Jill and Emma are in danger, he points out the university building. Meanwhile, Quaker and several agents follow the Russians all the way to the university. With the sniper team in position, they get a visual on Heimdall and Jericho, making Quaker order all units to move in. A gunfight breaks out between the Russians and the CIA, while Jan, looking through the window, steps back in fear. Elsa urges Heimdall to get to the airfield while she carries on with Jericho and the goons. Jericho leads them to a lab, lying that Jill's office is right around the corner. Using their distraction, he grabs an acid bottle and smashes it in their direction. They begin shooting while he quickly hides. As the changed being that he is, he tells the lab attendant to run, then throws another bottle, causing an explosion. Jericho escapes, heading straight to Jill's office. Just as Jan opens the door to leave, he slams into Jericho, who pushes him back and locks the door. He tells Jan about his deal with Bill, admitting he's closing it even though he's not alive. He gives Jan the duffel bag but keeps the passport. When Jan sees the money, he asks for the passport, but Jericho asks about the wormhole. He orders him to set it up and do exactly what he says. Some minutes later, Elsa walks into the office, shooting Jericho in the chest. She orders Jan to give her the flash drive, and he immediately does. However, like the cruel person she is, she shoots him in the leg. In pain, Jan says,
Giving Heimdall Fischl shield is fucking crazy.
But Elsa coldly shoots him in the forehead without blinking, ending his life. She then calls Heimdall, telling him she's got the flash. She also mentions Jan and Jericho's deaths, unaware Jericho is staggering to his feet behind her. Before she ends the call, Jericho smashes her head with a potted cactus, knocking her down. He then grabs a metal lamp, breaks it, and smashes her head in with the metal. And just like that, dear Elsa is gone from the world. He picks up the flash drive and Elsa's phone before leaving. Jericho walks out of the building, clutching his chest just above his heart. A lady by the ambulance tells him to wait by the van for the paramedics, but Jericho steals the van instead and drives off. Quaker and his team arrive at the office and discover Elsa and Jan's bodies. He retrieves the money and orders the computer to be scanned. Greensleeves interrupts, telling him a wounded man matching Jericho's description is driving away in a stolen ambulance. Quaker realizes he has the wormhole, and they immediately move out. While waiting at the airstrip, Heimdall gets a call from Elsa's phone, but it's Jericho. When Heimdall learns he has the flash, he orders his men to grab Emma. He then says,
I'm sending you directions. You come here
Read that flash drive.
or they die.
Jericho hears Emma's voice in the background, begging him to help, and Heimdall says she'll be the first to go so Jill can watch. This makes Jericho extremely angry. On the chopper, Quaker uses the radio to talk to Jericho, telling him not to give Heimdall the flash drive. However, Jericho says he has it all figured out. Quaker refuses, reminding him he's not Bill, but Jericho is only concerned about the gun to Emma's head. He's already forgetting her name, but Franks comes through the line, telling Jericho he can freeze what's left of the implant, and he can be normal. But they have to do it immediately before it's gone. Torn with indecision, Jericho asks about Jill, but Quaker tells him there are too many lives at stake, so Jill and Emma don't matter. Well, they do to Jericho, and he flings the radio away, his decision made. Several police cars catch up to Jericho, but he manages to evade them by making them crash into a trailer, causing an explosion. He soon arrives at the airfield and intentionally crashes into a car, killing one of the goons. They open fire, but he manages to rescue Jill, killing a goon with an axe. He shoots another down, while Jill tells him Heimdall has Emma. Jericho shoots another man, but runs out of bullets. Holding Emma hostage, Heimdall orders him to drop the axe. He points the gun at Emma's head, instructing him to throw the flash drive. Left with no choice, Jericho reluctantly does, and Heimdall releases Emma to catch it. As Emma runs to Jill, Jericho grabs and throws the axe at Heimdall, but misses, making Heimdall shoot him twice in the shoulder before boarding the plane. Quaker and co. arrive in the chopper just as Heimdall's plane takes off. Immediately, Heimdall fires a missile. Quaker learns of this and is told to evacuate the area immediately. He angrily goes to Jericho, now weak on the floor, shouting at him for what he's caused. Jill tries to intervene, but agents stop her. Unbothered, Jericho says,
I made that guy fix it.
Quaker realizes he's talking about the Dutchman and asks what exactly he fixed. Almost unconscious, Jericho reveals,
Heimdall's first shot. Whatever it was, wherever he tried to send it, it comes back for him. I told that motherfucker,
You hurt me. I hurt you worse.
True to his word, the missile flies straight into Heimdall's plane, blowing him, his men, and the wormhole up mid-air. Quaker is stunned by this as paramedics rush to give Jericho oxygen. Sometime later, Jill and Emma drive to a beach to meet Jericho, who's standing there. This is the scene from the beginning. Frank, Quaker, and some other agents watch from a distance. Quaker asks Frank if he's sure about what they're doing, and Frank says,
He hasn't been responding. Maybe this will trigger something. If he remembers anything, he remembers it all, and Bill Pope is here this time.
Jill and Emma step out of the Jeep, and Emma runs toward Jericho. When she reaches him, she tells him he might not remember her, but she knows him. She hugs him, surprising Jericho. Jill joins them, and Jericho suddenly does Bill's love signal, making her smile. He's remembered everything, and the three hold hands like a family. Quaker is amazed by this and decides to offer Jericho a job. And that, my friends, is how it ended. If you've made it to the end, hit the like button, comment, and share. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next recap.